New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good afternoon and welcome to Just One You with Rev B. And I am so delighted to have you with us today. Just One You, joy. I think that's how we arrive at it, is when we start to acknowledge who we are, where we are, and accept ourselves as we are. We can experience a lot more joy in our lives. So I'm really excited to be back here again this week. And today my guest is 17-year-old Geneviève TrudeL. And she is a singer, comedian, actor. Oh, she's a brilliant young woman. And we are really grateful to have her here today. Geneviève, welcome to Just One You.
Thank you.
So today I just want to talk a little bit about your journey that you've been on, and you've been singing since you could talk. And can you share a little bit about your passion and what it is you hope to do in the future?
Well, in regards to the beginning, I think you would remember most of that more than I would. But yeah, I've been singing and playing music, whether that was properly or not, since as long as I can remember. Um, yeah, it's just something I've always kind of gravitated towards and enjoyed and loved in life.
Awesome. And you're hoping to make a profession out of this?
That is, yeah, yes, that is the hope. I mean, at this point, there's really no plan B, and I do think that I will be able to push hard enough and accomplish and such.
Excellent, excellent. So, what are some of the things as a teenager, kind of handling big city and high school and all of those wonderful
Mhm.
things? Anything about that that's particularly challenging or that is particularly rewarding?
Well, I think in just in general, social media has made a lot of things harder because we're able to see sort of, as a lot of people know, like what this ideal thing for like what you should look like, how you should act, blah blah blah, what's accepted and what's not, and all that super fun stuff. It's a challenge, especially sort of anyone can see, anyone can um know you and have their own opinion and judge you, which I find is stressful. It is because um you're always thinking, like, for example, like I might take, say, 10 photos, and it's really only like one or two or maybe three that are going to actually make it onto like public posting. And even then it's like watching, well, like, who liked my post, how many likes does it have, what are the comments like, what are people thinking, why do these ones have more likes and these ones don't, what did I do wrong, what did I change, that kind of thing. And also just like the type of things that you can see on social media, where it's like things that are like horrible things, right? Like, because like I said, anyone can post anything pretty much, and so
Yeah.
you will come across some things that are like disturbing, or that something you might not agree with, etc. um with high school, like you've said this to me before, which was like when you were my age, when you left school, the drama was over. Like, what wasn't necessarily over, but it wouldn't continue when you were home because, it's not like you could text each other, and like you wouldn't really sacrifice the call for that type of thing.
Well, and probably telephone time was limited
Exactly.
because
So
there was
you would,
one phone for everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I remember being in 5th, 6th grade and, coming home and having my friends text me or whatever and having a lot of problems. And I think that's sort of the root cause for a lot of problems is things are said online, and a lot of arguments or stuff that has happened with me have been from from texting and not being able to hear the other person's tone.
Yeah.
So me and my friends, we use things like tone indicators to say like, this is a joke, this is a half joke, I'm being genuine, this is sarcasm, serious, etc. But a lot of people don't use that, and it can be really difficult dealing with those kinds of things, especially if it's like a group, for example, and it's like two people texting one person, and now you're kind of in a spot where other people are maybe typing faster than you are, and things are just going so fast and you can't keep up, and it can be very difficult. And I think it's also impacted by, you can't see the other person's reaction. I think there's, you may not be saying the things that you're saying online if you saw the person in real life. Like, a lot of people say things behind screens when in reality they would never even
Never.
say a word
Yeah.
in person.
I think that's one of the big changes. Like when I was in school, which was, close to 100 years ago, whatever, not quite. But it was a long time ago. And when I was in school, I would go home, and if there was any, argument with a friend or any challenge at school, that stayed at school until I came back the next time. So there was always that bit of a reprieve, where now there is none of that with the 24/7 of texting and Discord and all these other little things that get used. There's this constant bombardment. And I like what you talked about, how it can happen so fast that you can't even respond in
Yeah.
the chain as it's coming through, because there's too much of it. How does your music help with all of that? Is there anything about it that makes a difference in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I use music as a means to cope, and sometimes it'll be, to make me feel better, but other times it's just like, okay, well, I'm gonna listen to some sad songs and just get it all out and just kind of let myself feel everything. And the one song that's I've sort of always kind of gravitated towards is Clair de Lune.
Mhm.
Because I find that even though it's there's no lyrics to it, it's really just a piano, at least in the version that I listen to, it's just a piano. It There's so much emotion in the music, and that's sort of what I love about music in general, is that, you can have songs that are on the radio and that don't really mean much, but then you have other songs that turn around and have this huge meaning, and they can change people's lives. And I
Yeah.
think with Clair de Lune, it doesn't matter whether I am happy or sad or angry or whatever. If I can just listen to that song and just let out my feelings and release everything, and
Mhm.
just sort of have that comfort, um, regardless of the situation. And yeah, and then sometimes I'll sing if I'm sad, or sing if I'm excited, or
Mhm.
whatever, and it's just sort of like this release. Like some people, if they're like frustrated or whatever, they'll go out for a run and they'll release endorphins and whatnot. Or they'll go, I could also ulteriorly go swimming, for example, but COVID and stuff has been a little difficult, so that's not really an option. But um yeah, I use sort of my music, whether I'm writing or just listening or singing some artist's song. I use it as a means to express myself and bring everything that's inside that's kind of bottled up into the open.
And have you written much music?
hmm
Mhm. What kind of
I
things have you?
have, hmm, I have, I've written few songs, and there's only some that I actually really do enjoy. Like I've written a song. A lot of my songs are things that are very personal, or like things that, like, dealing with different things like mental health, or reacting to situations, or how other people's like affect me. Um, like for example, like the first song that I really wrote that I actually like was proud of is a song about Calgary, and how like my family's there, and how I feel more at home there when I'm with my family. Whereas I have another song that I wrote around this time last year, actually a month or two ago last year. Um that was about like the relationship that I was in, that it wasn't an entirely healthy relationship, and it was sort of surrounding that, and how I feel about that, and my frustrations around that situation in general.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, we do have a video of a song that you did at a recital about a month or so ago. And so we're going to share that now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about where you're going to take all of this. And now, Geneviève TrudeL.
It's not simple to say that most days I don't recognize me, that these shoes and this apron, that place and its patrons have taken more than I gave them. It's not easy to know I'm not anything like I used to be. Although it's true I was never attention sweet center, I still remember that girl. She's imperfect
Oh, what is the title of that song again, and who wrote that?
The song is called "She Used to Be Mine." I believe it was written by Sarah Bareilles.
Mhm.
And so it was written by her, but it was mainly featured in the musical Waitress.
Okay, okay, lovely, lovely song and great rendition. And the the vocal lessons you've been taking, you've been doing that for how many years now?
I started in 4th grade, so I think about 7 years ago.
Okay, okay. So where would you like to take this? Like if you could have your perfect experience, what would that look like? Can you kind of imagine what you
Yeah,
want to do?
I I really want to kind of share, my music or share just music with the world, and I think it's sort of a dream of mine to be able to travel the world and meet people, and I know that I want to do, like charity stuff and things of that nature for, animals and mental health and things like, like autism awareness and anxiety and depression awareness and all that stuff, to sort of bring that to light and use music as a means to sort of heal that and help others.
Yeah, to deepen the understanding so that we stop judging each other for our differences, but rather begin to see those differences as opportunities to know somebody better or
Mhm.
different or to have a new experience. And what about as a career? What would be your big hope with your music there?
Um, just to, like I said, travel the world and share my music and have, albums and releases and songs and, win awards and all that uh all that jazz.
All that jazz. I think that one's been done.
It has. I'll figure something out.
Now, what about musical theater? I know you've done a few
Yeah.
performances.
Yeah, musical theater is really one of my big passions. I think it's really underrated. I think a lot of people have this idea of, well, it's very sort of like High School Musical or things like that, which are all like super, breaking out into song, into random little things, when you can turn around and you have musicals like Hamilton, for example, which is not everyone's cup of tea, but it's I believe it's somewhere around 2 hours, and the whole thing maybe has a handful of scenes that are just dialogue, and they're not long. It's The musical is entirely music, and it ranges from, like super fast raps to slow songs and ballads and huge belting songs, um it's about Hamilton is about the most peculiar thing. It's about Alexander Hamilton, you know. And then you also have musicals um like Heathers or Hairspray or Mamma Mia, where it is that kind of, like dancing and, breaking out into song, and
Yeah.
I can deal with like harder subjects um and such. And I think it is really such an art form, because it's not just it's not just singing, and it's not just dancing, and it's not just acting, it's all of them together. And I'll think about, like, I'm watching musicals or watching different, like, like a concert, for example, and going like, "Man, how do these people memorize all of this?" And then realizing, "Wait, I've memorized things like this before." Like, it's weird to think that, like, when I was doing musical theater, we would have 3-hour rehearsals every Sunday, except for, like, holidays or such. But we would be there for 3 hours, and we would work on choreography, we would work on our lines, we would work on the music, and over, I think it was from around, like, September-ish to usually about late February, and we'd usually do the shows in March. But it's weird that, like, sort of all of this just kind of becomes muscle memory, and you just kind of know your lines and you know what's coming next and all this, and it's weird. It's like not just like, studying for a test or like memorizing things where you just have to go over it over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Whereas this kind of like builds and it brings joy, and it's nice to practice and that stuff. So yeah, I really would. I think it would be, I'd love to do a Broadway show one day, but whatever the future
And
brings.
and what else?
Mm.
Well, it's interesting, when you've got sort of your whole life ahead of you, and there's the possibility of creating anything actually that you would like to create. So it's fun to watch. It's been fun to watch you grow as a musician. Now you also play guitar and a little bit of piano.
Mm. Yeah, I can sort of play guitar and I can sort of play piano. It's,
Yeah,
I know the notes, and I'm not a great guitar player. I can just really strum and play a set of easy chords, but
yeah.
I'm learning.
You're learning. And the songs that you've written, you mentioned that you had written songs that deals with, mental illness and some of the challenges facing people today. What are some of those songs? Like, can you share something about one or two of those songs that to give us some
Yeah.
idea?
So one of my songs that I kind of fell in love with, I mentioned it earlier. It's a song called Never Know Nothing.
Mhm.
And I just I loved the ring to that, kind of thing, because it well, you think about it and you're like, well, it would be never knowing nothing would, you think about it and you think, oh, well, you don't know anything. But then you actually analyze it and you're like, never know nothing means you know. But that song specifically was kind of written in a time where I was struggling because the person I was with was struggling a lot, and I find that it's okay to depend on other people, but to a certain extent, because once it gets to a certain point, you kind of have this feeling of being trapped, and that's what I was feeling. It was always about this other person. Meanwhile, I too was struggling. Like, it could never be just about me, even when, like, for example, in February's, I struggle a lot because both of my grandparents died in February. And during that time, I sort of kind of distanced myself normally. And the person I was with was like, oh, well, I'm like, we've kind of drifted. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. That's my fault, because it was. And they said, well, I'm sorry too. We're both in the relationship. And I was like, they said, well, I'm busy too. And I was like, I'm not busy. I'm struggling. It's not a matter of,
Makes
I'm
sense.
out doing things and not talking to you, whether by accident or because I just can't. It's, I'm choosing to distance myself. And it was hard. Just that song is kind of like this feeling of not knowing. It's like not knowing why, when, how, and sort of not being seen and not understanding why someone else like can't see you or can't see what's wrong when you're right in front of them, kind of thing.
Right. And I think that's often the case in any type of relationship, is that it's really easy to get kind of caught up in our own stuff, and to see from the other person's perspective can be a bit of a challenge for sure.
Mhm.
So what other songs have you written along those lines that might be helpful to young people today? Well, even us old
Um
timers too.
I have another song. Well, I have one song that my most recent one I wrote, and it was just, it's about sort of, like, the beginning of the song was written when I was in a certain situation with a person who made me quite happy. But it was sort of like a struggle of, well, why can't you allow me to love you kind of thing. And I kind of stopped writing it because I sort of had like a block. And I don't know, I'll say a couple of weeks went by and sort of that situation with that person kind of passed. And I realized, well, why was I worrying about you the whole time? And the chorus goes something along the lines of like, I promise I won't hurt you, something, something. But for the last chorus of the song, I changed it to like, I promise I won't hurt you because I won't let you hurt me, or something like that. And it goes from like, wanting this person's love to realizing that you're not good for me. This isn't what it seemed to be in the first impression.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult when you're in relationship to figure out, how do I get out of this,
Mhm.
or how do I transform it? Because sometimes you can't. And from what you were mentioning earlier, the relationship being codependent all of a sudden creates that like we have to be together thing, but the reality is being together is just not right.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people my age kind of don't realize. And I think I've dealt with a lot of death in my life, so I've always had this idea and this mindset of nothing is going to last forever. Like, and that's just my thing. And it's like, including the stars in the sky. Like, it's just, you can't promise that, because it's just, that's how life works. And I think I remember at one time I had a friend ask me, well, are you going to marry them? And I'm like, of course I'm not going to marry them. I'm a teenager. I'm not dating to marry. I'm not dating to settle down. I'm dating to be a teenager, to have fun. Like, and I think like there's a couple in my school that have been together since ninth grade. And I'm like, well, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
Um, that's, you're the one in a million if you're making it out of high school together. And that's great for you. But I just I don't see the point of
Yeah.
looking for someone now who's like your soulmate. I have my platonic soulmate that I am perfectly comfortable with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, sometimes the friendships that we form are far beyond any of the relationship type challenges that come up when we fall in love with somebody. And then, of course, the whole journey of moving forward. But good for you to realize that falling in love at 14 probably isn't going to last to 40. Like that's a rare occurrence where,
Mm.
people fall in love in high school and, manage to live their whole lives together. That doesn't happen all that often. More often than not, it's, get married at 16, 17, 18, whatever, and divorced at
As
20.
you would know, of
Oh,
course.
I know that firsthand. You're dishing my dirt now, are you?
Well, I have to, since you're dishing mine. So give and take, give and take.
Give and take. It's a reciprocal
Mhm.
experience. Yeah, because I got married at 16 and
Mhm.
had my first child at 16.
And I've
And
made it to 17 without doing either. So
okay, so that's good. You're not following in
yes.
your mother's footsteps.
Uh,
Excellent. Gold star for you. But I think it's really important. Like I remember when I was in school, as many years ago as that was, um, sitting back and really believing that if a boy paid attention to me, then I had value. And what I really appreciate about you is you've never tied your value, how you think about yourself or feel about yourself or your gifts, your talents, based on what somebody else has to say about it.
yeah, I especially in regards to, like my own talent. For
Mhm.
example, like I'm my harshest critic, right? Like I'll go up on stage and I'll sing a song, and I'll finish the song disappointed because, my voice cracked, or I didn't hit the note like I wanted to, or I kind of messed up a little lyric or something, and
Right.
um my timing was off. I don't know. Whatever it is. I'll get off stage and I'll have people like, that was excellent, that was amazing, that was, like compliments and compliments. And I'm not a person, and this is something I've always believed, is I've never understood people who, like, especially in middle school, I remember, someone, like a friend, would get called pretty. Like, oh my God, you're so pretty on social media. And then they would go, thanks, but I'm not. That just never made any sense to me. Like, that not only are you disrespecting yourself, like, but why are you, the person took their time to compliment you and you're just basically entirely disregarding them. But I'll always, take the compliments. I'll say thank you, all that. But there's still going to be that doubt that I could have done better. I could have done this. I could have done that. Here's what I need to do for next time. And that's something I've sort of always struggled with, because I do have, stage fright, or that kind of thing, but it's not of, I don't want to, it's not like I have a fear of speaking in front of people or performing in front of people. It's, I have the fear of messing up. And, I think things that I would call huge mistakes people wouldn't even notice it.
Didn't notice it at all. Yeah.
So that's sort of been a struggle with. It's just, I don't hold myself up to other people's standards, but I hold myself up to my standards, and those happen to be extremely high. So, yeah.
But can you be gentle with yourself when that happens and say, oh, well, okay, so next time I'll pay attention to this or that? Or do you kind of beat yourself up about it?
I would say it depends on the situation. Say like I have a voice crack or something, and it's like, well, there's really nothing I can do to have prevented that. It is what it is. Or if I like mess up a lyric, then I'll say, okay, well, I'll practice better next time. But if I like, completely get thrown off or whatever, then I'll be like, okay, I'll like, yeah, I will beat myself up. And it's the same thing of like, you know, um, it's very weird that, like, getting ready in the morning and going to school, and like a lot of people like sort of don't really care, what they look like when they show up to school. But it really, like, if I ever show up to school with, like, say, no makeup on and sweatpants and like a sweater, that's kind of when whoa, she's not doing too good. Because normally I'll always be like, okay, like, that's when I just don't care. Like, I've gotten to a point of like, I don't care. I'm too tired to do my makeup. I'm too tired to care. I just don't have any anything that's sort of motivating me to actually get ready. Because yeah, I get ready, or I put makeup on to look presentable to other people, but I also do it for myself, because I like looking. I get pictures from like 2 years ago or something when they have like clear skin and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, my skin routine hasn't changed. But I'll put on my foundation in the morning, not only to find that I look presentable in public, but also to be like, yeah, I feel pretty, or I feel this. But I kind of also am able to have just a clean face, no makeup, and also feel pretty. And I'm also able to have makeup on and not feel pretty.
Right.
It all depends on the situation and on the day. And yeah.
Would you call yourself a confident person?
I would say that I carry myself like a confident person, but I would say that internally there are things I'm confident in. Like, I am confident in my singing. But you turn around and you look at um like looks and appearances, and just little tiny things that I think especially affect women in, or girls growing up, especially like now on social media, as you see like all of these people and like celebrities and such. And I think it is getting a lot better. We're accepting a lot more a wider variety of people in the spotlight, but it's still like there's that bias of, well, you have to be this size and you have to look like this and you have to wear this and this and this to be accepted. And um but I always do try and carry myself, like I always just kind of, I like to carry myself and walk and hold my head up high, like I know what I'm doing. Like I that nothing can hurt me, that I've got this hard exterior and all this. And I think I do succeed in pulling that act off, because I've had people at school tell me like, "Oh, you have like this like joking arrogance and this like confidence to you." And it's very weird to hear those things and then turn around and be like, well, here's how I actually am, where it's very harsh on myself, not always confident, not always joyful, not always optimistic, but I carry myself in such a different way, because I sort of, it's this wanting and this desire of, how do I want people to see me, instead of like, I want to let people see me, if that makes sense.
What would be the difference if you just let people see you for who you are and as you are and for real and for true? To let that authentic self out completely.
Well, I think that's a tough question, because I don't necessarily know, right? Because I
Mhm.
don't think I don't think anyone. You're not gonna have a lot of people that are consistently themselves all the time, because you know everybody. I think I do have a belief that like your personality is gonna change depending on who you're around. Like your core beliefs and your moral compass and all this stuff, your habits and such, they might remain the same, but you might act a certain way with one group of people, and then you're not gonna act the same way with your coworkers, and like in the business, as you would with like your childhood best friends or the people that you go out to party with or something. Or
Right.
it's not the same dynamic. But I think that um it's sort of like this confidence wall that I put up is sort of more like a screen. Like it's like just to sort of like blur it a little bit so you can't exactly see everything. But
Hmm.
you can, like if you like let's say you put like a, I don't know, an opaque screen and then put something behind it. You can like see the colors and maybe see a little bit of a shape, but you can't be sure. And I
Right.
think that's sort of what not only myself, but a lot of people my age do, and a lot of people in life do in general, because a lot of people care about how they are perceived, just in general.
Well, that's true. And so we wear masks, is kind of what I call it is, I need to act like this when I meet the in-laws, and I have to do this when I'm meeting a new boss or going for an interview. And if I'm on a first date, well, then, it's got to be right. Like there's all these pretenses that we use maybe to feel safe.
Yeah, I think it's a fear of being judged. And I know personally, I think you brought up like wearing a mask, and there is a term that is called masking that is mainly used for people who are neurodivergent, which for those of you who don't know, if you are neurodivergent, it means that like you have like your brain is just literally just shaped differently. So it could be anything from Down syndrome and autism to ADHD, like
Right.
that kind of thing. And masking is it's something that people who are neurodivergent are just taught. They're just taught because we aren't there's a certain way to act in public. You can't just like have a meltdown in the middle of a restaurant, or you can't just like yell and scream when you're in public. And or you learn what not to say and what to say and how to how to have your voice, you know, like I've noticed that like when I go to order something, or when I'm talking to someone at a store or a restaurant, or I don't know, on the phone or something, I I instinctively raise my voice. I make it higher and more friendlier and more bouncy and joyful. Um and it's a thing of kind of like, say at school, if I'm getting overwhelmed, I have to remove myself from the situation, because it's not like I can just get everyone around me to bend to my will because I need this and this. But I think masking is something that I've really struggled with, which is, you know, why do I have to make other people feel comfortable around me? Why can't,
Hmm.
you know, why can't they just be comfortable? Like what does my what does the way that my brain is shaped, and what disorders I do and don't have, what does that have to do with who I am? And I've learned that I've had a lot of people tell me, well, it's not that, like, you know, your disorders or whatever, not who you are. And I was like, I know that, but it's also a part of who I am. And that's
Yeah.
something I've kind of always been very particular in. It's like I'm, you know, it's not like I'm gonna, like, introduce myself and say, like, "Yes, hello, my name is Geneviève, and I have this, this, and this." No, but it's something that I've struggled with throughout my entire life, and
Yeah.
it's something that has, you know, shaped me, and experiences that I've had because of it, or experiences I haven't had because of it, that, have kind of molded me, and have they are not, they don't define me, but they are a part of me that I won't let, you know, I won't hide, that I'm not just gonna let other people entirely disregard.
I think that's, that's a really important point, is that each one of us is in fact unique. And because of our unique nature, not everybody is going to relate to us in the way that maybe we need to be related to. And so I think figuring out that we all have different traits and habits and things, I think is really helpful if we just acknowledge that we're all unique and special.
Mm,
And if we began to frame it that way, rather than going, how can I fit in? Because I think that's what most of us do, is try to figure out a way to fit in so that people will like us. And it's a little bit like watering down your lemonade. You water it down to the point where all of a sudden it tastes like plain water. Whereas if you are in fact, doing that with your personality,
yeah,
and I think we do sometimes. It's like, well, if it's not safe for me to be me, then let me just pretend.
yeah,
And I know when I was growing up, I had a lot of insecurity around people judging me or criticizing me or whatever. And so I was always trying to figure out ahead of time, who do I need to be? What do I have to do in order to fit into this particular
mhm,
situation? And that's exhausting, frankly.
yeah, it
you
is,
know I'm at an age now where I'm too tired to do that anymore. So
yeah.
hopefully you just like me for who I am, or you don't, and I'm good with that either way. So
Yeah, and, you know, I've kind of come to adopt that same idea of, you know, if you don't like me, I really don't care. Like I, you know, I have people at my school that have their opinions about me, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
like, what am I supposed to do about it? It's not like people that, and I'm talking about like people that aren't my friends. You know, like if I have, you know, like, and there's really only like a few people in my life that, you know, when they say stuff that's actually going to affect me, or I'm actually going to care.
right.
Um, but for like a lot of people, like I find it astonishing that there's one person at my school that just has this idea of me, and I'm just like, have we had a conversation in the past 2 years? But you have your ideas of me. All
Well,
right, I like, and that's the thing, is I just don't care, because it's like, that's your business, okay? I don't, your opinion of however you think I am, or who you think I am, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. Who cares? you
Well, I
know?
think it's interesting how we will look at somebody from the outside and decide who they are, and then project that onto them, when really we don't know them. And one of the things that I've come to understand in my advanced years is that looking at what people think about me, or even what I think about other people, I'm never right.
Mhm.
I'm never right. It's like you get an idea, you see somebody and immediately you form an opinion, whether it's based on the way they walk or talk or the way they look. And there's an opinion that's been created that is completely unconscious.
Yeah.
And then until you actually have a conversation with the person, you are actually acting out of your own history, your own belief system, your own attitudes. And that has nothing to do with that person in front of you that you've just met.
Mhm.
Like I remember years ago, when I would look at, my youngest son, and he would have, his mohawk and it'd be dyed blue. And then he had all these piercings and dressed all in black. And it's like, if he was walking down the street, there'd be some people who might cross the street to not have to go past him with, deciding, oh, here's this big guy and he's scary. Truth is, he's a teddy bear.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's one of the one
Yeah.
of the sweetest kind of people ever, cares about people a lot. And, as an artist, a musician like yourself, it's like, so I look at that and I go, we're judging the book by the cover, and you can't tell much by a cover,
No, you cannot. No,
right?
you cannot.
Especially these days, when you can have purple hair, or you can,
Yeah.
you can get a facelift and all of this.
That reminds me of, there was a, on SNL, they do those songs every week. They do, like, those parody songs of whatever.
Yeah.
This one must have been done during Pride Month, but there was one that was I don't like I can't tell you what the song's called, but I just remember this one that was like it's basically like, when did all these straight girls start dressing gay? Like, start dressing like lesbians, because it's like these like, I think it's a lesbian and a gay man, and the gay man's like, "Okay, well, what about her?" He's like, "I tried, she's not gay." It was like, "Okay, what about her?" So, "I tried, she's not gay." Really? Because, like, how they dress, and, because I think there's, like, an idea of especially for people, excuse me, people of, like, LGBT, of, like, well, if you're more of, like, a flamboyant man, then, well, he's gotta be gay. Or if you're, like, a super, like, masculine and sort of tomboy-like girl, well, then she's gotta be gay. But that's entirely untrue, and it's also, why c why does one person have to be shoved into one category?
Mhm.
Why do they have to be put into that one box of, "Okay, well, here's what you like, here's how you dress, here's how you act, and that's your label."
It's all
Absolutely not,
assumptions. It's all
because
assumptions. Yeah.
I can wake up one day and I can be like, "Oh, I wanna wear a dress," or, "And I wanna wear a skirt," and then another day I'd be like, I don't even wanna, like, let anybody see me in that type of clothing, I'm going to wear pants." And it's like, I shop in the men's section, and some men shop in the women's section, and it's like, I think, honestly, that's something that we have to just get rid of altogether of. But I
And it
just
brings up the topic of gender,
that
which to
is
me is, I mean, it's ridiculous that we've decided that there has to be boy and girl. Like that somehow that's all that exists, when we know that's not true.
Mhm,
And yet we have decided that we are going to sort of demand that everybody sort of fit into a certain box. We all have to be like this to be acceptable. And anybody who's outside of the walls of that box, which is like all of us, but that kind of got missed. But it's like we're all trying to fit into something that isn't real in the first place. And we're living our lives in confusion and in frustration because we've been told, well, boys wear blue and girls wear pink and girls play with dolls and boys have cars. And well, what about the little boy who likes to dress in a tutu and play with Barbie dolls? Like, what is wrong with that? And yet, we're just starting to come out of that. I know when I meet your friends and stuff, there's a whole different experience of the female male whatever. It's not as defined as when I was a kid.
And you know what? That's what I like. Like my school has gender neutral washrooms, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like you don't, and those bathrooms can be really useful because I think something that a lot of people don't think about is, what if you are someone who identifies as, say you are born female, but you identify as a man. Then, well, if you go into the men's bathroom, well, then, your people have their opinions of you. The men in the men's bathroom are going to be like, oh, well, this person's just trying to like looking at us or whatever. And then if you go into the women's washroom, well, it's like, well, I thought you were trans. But that's where kind of those the gender neutral washrooms come in handy, because and what if you don't identify with either? If you find
Exactly.
yourself non-binary, well, then there you are. And I think there's a lot of things that have to change in general around
Mhm.
gender, because I find that like it's not like things with gender and sexuality, it's a spectrum, and it's you can be on one end or you can be on the other, but then some days you can be on one end, some days you can be other, sometimes you can be in the middle or halfway or whatever. It's there's it changes, and it grows and it modifies, and depending on the day, you can wake up and want to look, you might want to dress like all in pink and like with a skirt and with a tutu and with, like super like hyper feminine things. But then other times you might want to turn around and just like wear things out like a boy would normally wear or whatever.
Yeah,
But
it's such an interesting conversation, and probably we could do a whole show just on gender. And maybe I'll do that actually, come to think of it. I think it's a good idea. Because there is a lot of confusion, especially from people my age who are, coming up to the end of their years, their last, 10 or 20 or 30 years. And looking at the young people today, there can be some great confusion as to trying to figure it out. And for me, one of the challenges is even with the pronouns. When I'm at a restaurant or whatever, and I'm not sure if the server is male or female, because sometimes who knows, right? And it's like, how do I refer to that person? Because I want to be respectful.
yeah.
And so, it's come to terms with not using things like girl, boy,
Mhm.
she, him, and coming up with other ways of talking about it. And I know the they, them, which you have beside your name, that causes confusion because those are considered
Yeah, like a group
a
pronoun.
plural. And so when you have somebody who identifies as they, it's like, but it's one person. So I know for people my age, that can be confusing.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, if you're at a restaurant or whatever, if you don't know how the person identifies, just use they, them. It is a gender
Exactly.
neutral pronoun. That's kind of what it is. And, I think something that a lot of people do unconsciously is, let's say, like, oh, well, I've been having a lot of headaches and I went to go see my doctor. It's like, oh, well, what did he say?
Yes. What did he say?
It's like, why can't what did they say? Like it's people, I think people just make it so much more complicated than it actually is in reality. Like
Yeah, I
I
think
remember having a conversation with even my older brother Curtis, and he's like, well, it's a group of people. I just can't wrap my head around it. And I'm like, who cares? It doesn't have anything to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You want to be respectful, just use they them pronouns. Remove that like constricting little box, grammatical rules out of you. Like it's stupid. It's stupid. And I will allow myself to call my
Oh,
brother stupid on this. He's not stupid.
siblings.
I adore him. I love him. But it's like, you can see I've grown up in Ontario and he's grown up in Alberta. So,
Well, and he's a bit older than you, so there's a rigidity that
right.
comes with
Well,
age.
24 years.
Yeah,
That's not that much.
yeah. Well, it's enough. But there's a rigidity that we have, that there's a reluctance to change. And I know this conversation could go on for a long
Mhm.
time. So I'm going to have you back
Oh,
sometime
lovely.
soon, hopefully. And you're going to remember that we're going to talk about gender and the issues of sexuality and gender, and how we get through all of that
Mhm.
in this new world that we now live in.
Yeah.
Geneviève, thank you so much for joining me. Geneviève is my youngest daughter, and she's a lovely person who I adore. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, Just One You, the Joy Show with Rev B, and today with Geneviève TrudeL. And thank you to Deja for doing production. Have a great week, everybody. See you next Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern.